This is an open letter for Uncle Sam. Love you, man. Here's the thing, Uncle Sam. I mean, about double taxation, the matter of double taxation. It's a very serious matter of double taxation and penalizing people for doing something that should not be penalized. I give you an example. Not only should not be penalized, but it should be incentivized. One example, the whole idea of if American citizen goes abroad outside of America and does something for a living, anything for any non-American corporation. If an American citizen living outside of America, not working for a U.S. corp, that person, Uncle Sam expects their taxes on the money they make. Because if they're hired by their own corporation, they're taxed according to U.S. law. But what happens if they're not hired by a U.S. corporation? So what happens is Uncle Sam says, I don't care about your local taxes. You're paying tax to me on whoever you're getting paid by. You are paying taxes on that money to me. You're going to be paying that. And well, of course, anywhere anybody lives, I guess the owners of those lands also apply their laws to the person. So they're being taxed by them as well as by the originator country. So what happens is, this is basically not only it's not an incentive, it's a very it's a very unfortunate idea that people should be double taxed. I mean, the same person now if they're working overseas, they're paying the local tax as well as their country of birth tax. It's sort of like, so they're being double taxed. The other countries apparently don't have the same law, or they cannot apply it when it's the other way around. But the whole idea that we are going to disincentivize, if there is such a word. It's not an incentive. It's the opposite of incentive. You're penalizing people for an act that I think it should be promoted. I mean, the idea of spreading American values, who better to take this idea to the rest of the damn planet than a bunch of Americans as tourists? You see what I'm saying? I mean, who better, if the idea is that our idea is the best, well, let them spread it. Incentivize the spreading of these people around the world. And that is not through soldiers. You don't need to spread through soldiers. You can spread through tourists. I mean, you incentivize people to go on, try to incentivize people going out. American citizens moving out and spreading, the idea of democracy and freedom and goodwill, let's spread the idea of the goodwill part through tourists. And even if the tourists are working over there, you see, anybody who's not living where they were born, they're always going to be a kind of a tourist. You have a long-term tourist, the guy who has immigrated from Iraq to Germany, and let's say that he's been living there for like 30 years now. He's an Iraqi. He's still a tourist. You see what I mean? It's a long-term tourist, but it's not his place. Every time he steps out of his door, he understands that it's not his place. So, what I'm trying to say is, even people who are long-term decide to leave and go and work in another piece of this geography on Earth, that should be incentivized, because, you know, if they come back with a lot more knowledge, a lot more perspectives. If they come back after a few years of working abroad, and not being double taxed, after a few years of working abroad in another country and not being double taxed, and maybe even being incentivized. Here, we give you a stipend if you want to go over there. We actually give you a little more to cover the local place's taxes. Whatever that shithole wants to tax you, we pay that tax. The opposite of what is happening now. If that happens, that's incentivized for American citizens to, for short terms, for a year, 2 years, 5 years, who's counting? Short term or long term? These guys, Americans, travel abroad. Here is a government stipend. We like you to try over there. Go do whatever. Doesn't matter what they do over there. The fact is, the idea exchange part takes place. The idea of, okay, democracy and rights and maybe, you know, a little involvement in the governance would be nice. This idea will be, you know, spoken with friends and colleagues in the workplace that they do in that shithole. So if the idea is our system is the best, well, why haven't you been trying tourism instead of incentivizing, you know, armies? Incentivize tourists. Hey, maybe apparently we don't know much of each other. Let's get to know each other. We want to send 100,000 of our people to your people over the next 5 years. You send us 100,000 of your people over the next 5 years. And anybody can, you know, find a job, whatever. You know, we will try to work out something. Just to mixing of the people. Obviously the people are, you know, don't understand each other. Let's have them understand each other on the streets. The whole idea is incentivizing more communication, so maybe may the best ideas win. You see what I'm saying? If you say we got the best idea, well, only a dialogue will, you know, end in who's got the best idea. Only through dialogue. Who's got the best idea, I can assure you, doesn't happen with weapons. Weapons just shows who has better mechanical abilities. You know, war is basically, it's not about who's got the best idea. It's just who's got the best mechanical abilities. And geniuses in, you know, physics may not be great humanitarians at the same time. As you know, you see from the interviews of some of these folks, is they're not very, you know, they're geniuses in their field, but they're not very, you know, nobody said a genius should be a humanitarian at the same time. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the stupid guy who understands how difficult it is to be stupid in this world. The point is, this double taxation goes the opposite way. It says, nope, we are not going to have an exchange of people. If my people decide, if my people, any of these motherfuckers, if they decide to come to, let's say, work in Paris, or work in Chad, or work in, Johannesburg, they can go and work there, but they're going to pay their taxes and they're going to pay our taxes as well. That's double taxation. So that's a disincentivizing. That's penalizing people to choose the idea of going and spreading the idea. Why do you want to do that? And then when they don't get the message, let's go shoot them? Sort of like, if you're not trying to spread the message via goodwill and tourism and trade, you're not willing to do it, spread the message via that, but you are willing to spread the message via tanks and bombs. Any form of government that has to has to come in with bombs, and foreign bombs have to bring a new form of government which is better. The Indians, the Redskins, the Redskin Indians, that scenario was, played on them. They said, we are bringing you civilities at the end of our muskets. Either our civility, our kind of civility, or, the business end of the musket. But this is what happened. It was genocide. 110 million eventually perished. I mean, the smarter choice would have been, re-education camps for the Redskin Indians. Re-education camps, okay, there was some re-education for their children, but they could have had re-education camps. But no, they were mowed down. Sort of like, apparently you don't understand the concept of title. So since I got the title for this land, so therefore you have to go. And they could have used some kind of re-education camps. But now, the Chinese are forbidden to have re-education camps. Do you want them to go in Han versus the Redskin Indian style on them and just, so yes, we have a little skirmish here. We, blew a couple of towns up, problem solved. That is the, Cowboys and Indians kind of way. They didn't go that route. They put them in a re-education camp. Try to mix them up with. They're fucking bunch of those Urga, whatever the name their name is. I think the Chinese are taking the right way on them. It's a landlocked group of tribes in Central Asia, much like the Mongolians, very backward because they have been landlocked forever. And since the sea routes have opened, they have remained in the 14th century, since this, I guess, 17th century, since the sea routes have opened and the steamships have come into play. All these places have become very quiet because they used to get a traffic of land, and they don't for many years now. That's why the backwardness. And the Chinese actually are doing the right thing, reimagining the Silk Road. That's the best thing to do for these people, to start up the Silk Road and say, yes, it's let's make whatever we can profitable make it more profitable to do some business by land through high speed, that maybe the land routes open have a way of competition with this with the plane rides, because they understand that if any of these fucking landlocked regions on Earth have to progress, they can only progress through contact, physical contact. You know, tourist routes, scenic tourist routes. Something that attracts people to intermingle more with their neighbors. That's the only way these landlocked nations are going to, you know, have a chance of being anything near normal. Internet helps, but again, physical contact, physically knowing your neighbors, knowing your neighborhood, neighbor countries, neighbor regions, neighbor tribe, it helps in solving a lot of problems, preventing a lot of problems from coming about. Well, these people are backward, you know, they're of Turkish origin, and they have been landlocked for, you know, for the past couple of 100 years since the steamships. So they remain very backwards. They probably re-education camp helps them understand some kind of basics of modern life. They're real backwards. So, you know, the best way to do it is to mix them up. Bring a lot of Huns over there, pull a lot of it, just to, you know, freshen up the stench. Get rid of the stench of being landlocked and, you know, backward. So what's wrong with that? I think it's a good idea. As long as nobody dies. Yes, they're learning, they understand that this factory work is, you know, they used to be in the field, they're all used to be in the field, and they decided they wanted to stay in the field. The Chinese said, hey, there's these kind of jobs, you can sit down and actually work and make more money. Yeah, at the beginning they have to push them a little. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, if untouched, these people in central China are as backward as the Afghans, if untouched. Well, China doesn't want an Afghanistan up its ass. I think it's a good idea. What is this freedom and choice that you know, my dear Western philosophers come about, and choice and freedom, when the guy is stupid, like the Afghans are, they're in this vicious circle of stupidity and, you know, father to son stupidity and father to son stupidity. They're in that kind of a cycle. You know, it's good that, you know, you break that cycle, not with violence, the way the British do it every decade, every couple of decades, every half a century or so, goes and invades and bloodies the whole place out and then gets frustrated and leaves. That's the Western colonial plan. That was Mr. Blair's plan. Let's go smash some heads, test some weapons, and yeah, when we get tired we leave. Have a nice day. Well, I'm sorry, why do it like that? Why not re-education camps Chinese style? I mean, you really care about them? Re-education camps Chinese style. You just sit them down, work them, and then, you know, build some cities for them, and then slowly take them off from your own holding area and put them back in modern style cities. Yes, it's, you know, social engineering the way Uncle Sam doesn't want to do. You know, Uncle Sam is a bull in the shop. It's sort of like, I don't give a fuck about you motherfuckers, but don't get me started. If I have to get up, come over there and kick some ass, we're gonna have some, you know, bloody business. So don't let me get up. That's basically Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam, re-education camps are good. If there is an area in the world that is backward, you know, maybe you can carry teachers on you know, the aircraft carriers. Carry teachers sort of like here is the RF aircraft carriers. We carry 5,000 teachers with us everywhere. 5,000 teachers, and then the other aircraft carriers is 5,000 doctors, and in the other aircraft carriers there is 5,000, engineers, and they spin around the world and they deposit knowledge and have come into contact with local people. That's encouraging tourism. That's encouraging people-to-people contact. Hey, we are spending this money on, arms. Why, have one of these ships just be teachers? And we end up in, Zambia. And, our teachers go to work and, do whatever that is, is asked of them. Teach whoever wants to learn. Up close and personal. All kinds of teachers. I don't know. But the point is this. This whole idea that not only we're not going to incentivize tourism short term, 2 weeks, nor long term, 2 years. We are not going to incentivize this, or extra long, 20 years. We are not going to incentivize that, but we are going to penalize it. Not only we are not going to send aircraft carriers full of doctors or nurses, engineers, or athletes. Not only we are not going to send these aircraft carriers full of these guys around the world, as in like more promotion of more tourism, more exchange of people, but not only we are not going to do that, if anybody from us goes outside and work, we know they're going to pay that country's tax, but we're going to tax them too as well, as if they've been working for us the whole time. It's sort of, they weren't working for you. They were born, on you, but they weren't over there. They're working for you. Some other cocksucker over there. Why they're not working there? But the idea is we don't want them to have contact. Why you're penalizing? The right way to go is, you know what? Not only you don't have to pay our taxes, but only we're going to subsidize the local taxes for you. You're an American citizen. If you go and work in Egypt, we pay your local taxes. Keep an account of it. Whatever sales tax you pay, whatever, we replace it. As if if you go live over there, you're not going, we pay that tax to your local government. That's an incentive that everybody wins. You have an injection of dollars into local governments directly through your own citizens. They pay taxes to the local authorities for the food they eat, the place they rent, the income they have. They pay that taxes to the local authorities, as an incentive. Uncle Sam replaces that tax, gives it to them. So that becomes, whatever you make as an American citizen in, let's say, Libya, in Algeria, in, South Africa. American citizen, you live over there, whatever you make, you can keep it all, and whatever taxes you have to pay, we replace it for you. That's an incentive for any American who's not everybody is gonna rush out the door. People are raising families. People are, don't worry about, there's not going to be a rush. There is a lot of paranoia about the outside, and there is a lot of a lot of people have families and they don't want to move, they don't can't move, they don't want to move, and there's a lot of paranoia, and then there is a lot of other obligations that people cannot. Government jobs, civil service, they can't move. But the point is this: a lot of others that may have better options or similar options just for an experience, they may move abroad. And if the government is actually subsidizing their taxes over there, that means not only they're living over there without paying taxes, which is always a good thing, but also that incentivizes the fact that they continue. What is this continuation? What's good about this continuation? The continuation is the ideas, and these people, but I'm sure they will find it some time to actually read the Constitution. The ideas of Constitution of US. Everybody else also has a Constitution. Let's make sure. But the US Constitution is pretty well known one, and it's not a bad piece of work. But the point is this idea, you want to spread it. Your citizens living abroad, doing a job, whatever it is, and being incentivized not paying taxes to anybody because U.S. government takes care of the local taxes. This idea is very you got to get around how to work it judiciary wise. You have to leave it to local government. You can stay all out of that and say, hey, please stay out of trouble, because while you're there, stay out of trouble. End of story. You're their responsibility. While you're their responsibility. We can't help you if you do something bad. I'm sorry, you would have done the same. We would have screwed you, just as bad if you had done that thing over here. So as long as those ideas are the same, this exchange of people, and as long as it's equal, it's sort of like, US and China decide that yes, we are going to exchange 10,000 tourists every month. It's 10,000 from me to you and 10,000 from you to me. And there shouldn't be a problem. And with the incentive that if you live in the other guy's country, we actually will incentivize it by, subsidizing your tax. Subsidizing your taxes. And this is an incentive that the guys who live in the other land, other than they were born in, they don't get to pay taxes. You see what I'm saying? The idea is the mixing part. Once the mixing takes place, then you won't have any problems. You can, you can let the nuclear warheads rest. Every few years they pull them out, they sharpen them up, they get them ready for battle. Folks, this is silly. This situation is silly. It's sort of like any country you have a problem with, you start having problem with, you should start exchanging more tourists. Have an agreement that, without any agreement, you don't need any agreement on the table. All you need is agreement of exchanging of tourists. At the beginning, here's the thing. Imagine when the moment they started with the North Koreans, the moment Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim shook hands, that Kim Jong-un, the two sharpest knives in the toolbox, when they met, imagine what would have happened. That the agreement for that handshake would have been exchange of 1,000 tourists a month between the two nations. Every month 1,000 tourists go in, the other 1,000 can come out or they can stay. If everybody's happy, they can stay. You know, both the tourist and the host. If they're both happy, after a month they can stay. If they don't want to stay, they can come back. But the idea is you should stay there for a month. And for that month, there is an incentive. We actually, you know, pay your paycheck for that month. As a, you know, call it a extracurricular activity for, you know, Space Force. You know, extracurricular activity for Space Force. Hey, we need to, you know, have this somehow organized. The idea of exchange of this many. Imagine that from the time Trump shook hand with that guy, imagine there was this idea of 1,000 or 5,000 tourists every month from Korea should come over here, and from here should go to Korea. 500 a month. And we don't care. You send us anyone, and we send you you send us your students. We send you our students. 14, 15, you know, a kind of age that's, you know, or younger. The kind of age that they don't actually, you know, they need to go back to their family. They're not in a situation that they can actually under 18. Exchange of under 18 year olds between the two countries. The point is this: you gotta start somewhere. Mixing of people before you guys, you know, burn each other to the ground. You have to start mixing people on Earth. And this refugee business is a bad idea. This refugee, you're reaching the same almost the same objective, but through force. You're trying to sort of, but how bad is it that the first contact that an Iraqi boy has with another boy of his age, American boy of his age, how bad it is that the first contact they have ever meet on Earth, on planet Earth, two people from planet Earth, the first time they meet on Earth, one is holding a weapon on top of the other one. It's not a picture that is, you know, pleasant for, you know, for our space friends. You know, sitting up there from an alien's perspective, you know, above Earth, is looking down at it and he's watching it and he's like, shit, man. You people, you know, it's like, if you stop reproducing, which is always a great idea, if you stop reproducing, there is enough place on Earth for everybody that comes out of this production line. And they keep trying to give it a, you know, religious tinge, this business of birth. It doesn't have a religious tinge. Business of birth does not have a religious tinge. It's a reproduction act. All the animals do it. Humans do it too. It's a reproduction act. Everyone, it's the spirit doesn't come in, the spirit doesn't go. It's a reproduction act. End of story. So, and giving it religious tinge and is spiritual, therefore no abortion and no. It really doesn't make sense. Whatever you produce, you have to be able to take care of, or else why the fuck you're producing? I mean, if you gotta produce 12 to make, you know, no, you have to be able to, you know, give the best available, provide the best available environment for your reproduction. Yes, if you're the richest man in the on earth, you can have a, you know, obviously you're intelligent enough, you can have as many babies as you want. But advertising it to have everybody have babies, more babies, more babies, is sort of like, are you, you know, you think the beehive is a good idea? So why do we need a beehive? It's why not, you know, give a higher status than a bee to people, you know, provide a much better environment so the one who does come to this world can, you know, enjoy his presence on earth for these few years that you're alive. So the point is this. Well, then what is few years that you're alive and trying to make this as miserable as possible for each other, because, you know, insecurities that are present over economics. It's over will I have enough to eat? Will I have enough to pay for my, you know, cave? That's, I mean, without socialism, you're not gonna, you're down on the, basically you're not going to be Star Trek under the capitalist system. I wish everybody sees Star Trek, at least see a few seasons of Star Trek, and understand that, you know, unless you don't want to evolve from where you are, you're not, in terms of economics. Unless you want to evolve past the whole idea of how is it better for me, you know, capitalist economics. How is it better for me? Me, mi familia, me, it, you know, and when you mix commerce with the state, this idea of the commerce men are very me. Those are commercial men. The kind of personality that is a me from start to beginning, that's a commercial man, commercial minded man. Not a, you know, not a intellectual man. Not an intellectual man. So, but at your leadership level, as a society, you need intellectuals. So you gotta somehow, you know, put commerce in its place and say, okay, you know what, commerce, I love you, commerce. I love what you have been able to achieve in terms of production. But, and, you know, the consumerism that it has brought. I love commerce. But you have to cut the cord between commerce and the state, so intellectuals can actually, you know, make decisions based on what is, you know, good for the next 100 years on planet Earth. You know, very intellectual people who, intellectuals are people who, when they see reason, they understand. You know, when they see reason, they understand. So, okay, this is like this, this is like this, this is like this. Okay, I understand. These are intellectuals. And people who, you know, when they see reason, they understand, they accept. These salesmen are not that sort of people, you know. Frat boys are not that kind of people. They're not. So, and you know that recently, you know, the main players have been salesmen, good salesmen from commerce, you know, who were, you know, good, mostly from commerce, except Obama. but the rest were, commercial man, more or less. Good salesman, even if they weren't commercial man, on the surface at least. Even when they weren't commercial man, they still were able to sell themselves well. That's how you get elected, by selling yourself. So my point is this: this whole idea of double taxation that apparently salesmen have come up to basically what I'm trying to say is the selfishness that the salesmen have comes into the position of leadership that they have. If a lot of leaders are from the salesman class, from the commerce, they come in with a very selfish mindset. Now, some of them, they feel you're in their tribe too. Those would be the socialists. Some of them who come to the top actually, only think about themselves and their whole immediate family and nobody else. Fuck everybody else. So, but they're both salesmen. So they both, get the job because the job requires a good salesman. Salesmen are very selfish most of the time. Many of them, like 90% of the time. The salesman has a very selfish perspective in life. Now, it doesn't matter whether you sell yourself, your smile as a politician, or you sell, mattresses. So, and it's certainly not intellectual. Intellect is not necessary in a sales personality, in a sales job. So you have a bunch of commerce people from commerce, bunch of salesmen who take over the job. And what happens is, for example, this double taxation, and not just the top job, but every senators, representatives, they're all salesmen, good looking, you don't find 50-year-old, 60-year-old, ex-drug addict in there. They are what they are. They're good people. But people who are, salesmen, very successful in their, selling themselves, selling their education, selling their whatever they had to, sell well, so to be pleasant and palatable to everybody around them or whoever voted, so they can be elected. So there's a sales process going on. Salespeople are not long-term thinkers. Salespeople are short-term thinkers. So this whole idea of double taxation comes from sales side, from the commerce side to the state. This idea of, no, we want our educated here for ourselves. Fuck them. If they go over there, we penalize them, we double tax them. This is how the commerce-minded perspective sees the world. It's sort of like, no, we want the educated people here because we want to use them to build this, build that, fix this, fix that, teach, whatever. But they're not thinking that, yeah, it is good to have them here, but in the long run, it might be a lot better to have some of them somewhere else who come and go. Some of them come back after a few years, bring back their new perspective, and it's good for the society to have many perspectives. It is good if you want to really people to exist. For people to exist, really, enjoy their life, as we were speaking. For people to enjoy their life, they need to feel they exist. I mean, imagine this. Joe from backwoods of Mississippi. His number comes up and Joe is called and say, hey Joe, news, we are going to, incentivize your stay in Chad for a year. for a month, for 6 months, for 3 months. And the objective is you got to spend a year, outside. Or if you want to choose a year outside, his number comes up. You just call him and say, hey, your number has come up. You have the option of going and living anywhere you want, and we pay you just the same way we pay the soldiers. $2,000 a month, but you got to live over there. And once you start earning for yourself, if ever, if you want to continue looking for work, we give you the $2,000 a month. Live over there. Once you find work, we pay you. We pay your taxes. Whatever the local authorities over there charge you for taxes on your pay, or even your sales taxes, we refund you. We pay you. That's another way that to inject dollars into local systems through tourists. What better way? Not through war, through tourism. But it has to be organized. It has to be incentivized. Even if it's not organized, at least incentivized. Going and living abroad and doing whatever job that they find attractive, whatever job they were doing back home. For example, a dentist who, imagine a dentist, a very successful dentist who has retired at 50. He realizes that if he goes and works continues his practice as a dentist in Algeria, his taxes are, whatever he makes, great. Whatever is taxed by the local government, Uncle Sam refunds to him. That's an incentive for, Americans to have two careers. One career in their own, and after a while they may get tired of the same routine or feel adventurous to raise a family, raise an American family in Chad, in Algeria. Oh, here's an incentive. If you go over there, whatever money you make, great for you. Whatever taxes you make, we refund you. That's that spread of, constitution across the planet. And a lot of goodwill will come out of it. If Uncle Sam just incentivizes, this kind of human exchange. If Uncle Sam, not only they stop penalizing it by double taxing American citizens abroad, by taxing American citizens abroad, they're double taxing them. Not only don't do this, but you should incentivize it, refund the local taxes to the person, and maybe even you can want to take some of your soldiers, just, incentivize some of them that once they leave their business, their soldiering business, incentivize, hey, we will pay you same salary after you finish your military service. We pay you same salary if you live abroad, anywhere you want, as long as as long as English is not spoken. Let's put it this way. And in that way, just what the citizens you get back, especially the citizens you get back after military, 5 years of military, 4 years of 5 years of military, and then 5 years of, you have an option to go live abroad, and we pay you the same salary. Just live there. After this 10 years, then you know that you get some nice people. After the 5 years, and after the 5 years of tourist part, you get some nice people back. It's just about the perspectives. People with multiple perspectives are on matters are much more stable than people with only one perspective. It's just more perspectives brings more stability, because more perspectives brings sympathy and empathy. When you have sympathy and empathy, you can't go wrong. When your society is too sympathetic and empathetic with each other, you can't go wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing, and this was the problem when Trump comes in. He's destroying sympathy. He's voting for the destruction of sympathy for the other side, empathy for the other side. The vote was, yes, we don't give a fuck about the other side. We are great. Yeah, you can say that, but that's the last, the last breath of any sympathy or empathy left. When a society loses all sympathy and empathy, it implodes. It explodes. Then it implodes. You don't want that. You want very sympathetic and empathetic society. To do that, you need to send a lot of your people to other places, to shed holes. The same Trump said, he was right. Send them to shed holes. Incentivize their trip to shed holes. One trip to a shed hole for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years spending, although getting paid for it, but spending just the soldier coming out of soldiering, and 5 years being just paid the same salary to just explore. Or better incentive would be, if we pay first, you pay for the exploration, then you pay for 5 years of soldiering. Here's anybody willing to become a soldier for 5 years, we will send them on a world anywhere they want. We will pay the same salary for 5 years. After that 5 years of tourism is up, they can come and pay. We pay them the same salary, but now they have to be a soldier. Then I give you a man. Then I give you a very productive member of society. 5 years of tourism and 5 years of, military service. You can do this mandatory for everybody. Everybody has to, once they reach 18, 5 years of tourism anywhere they want in the world. Anywhere that's not your country. If you're Nigeria, same thing applies. If you're any country, if you're China, you reach 18, 5 years tourism, too long, 3 years tourism and 3 years of military service. You do the 3 years of tourism, after that you're obligated to us for 3 years of military service. First, give them the world, let them go live in a different perspective, get a different perspective in the world, and then call them back and say, okay, now you can be a soldier. Now then you will get kind of soldiers who at least speak two languages. After spending 3 years in another country, you speak their language pretty much, especially if you're that young at 18, 19, 20, 21, back home 21, 22, 23, 24 as a soldier. At 24 or 25, you will get young men and women who have seen the world, speak a second language, and have done 3 years of service. But then you call this socialism, or you call this communism. It's sort of like, do you want productive entities or you don't? Do you want productive entities or you don't? As simple as it gets. Do you want productive entities? If you want productive entities, you have to invest in it. Now, if an intellectuals were in the Senate, they would have understand that investing in, your material, even if they were good businessmen, they would have understood that you have to invest in something if you want to reap any profit from it. Education is an investment in your society. If you're not investing in an education of other countries, is in a longer term interest of your own societies. Not only educating your own people is a good thing for the future of your society, but educating those other cocksuckers, that's also in the interest of your own society, because the more you educate them, the faster they will, their societies will evolve to closer to yours, therefore less conflict. So, but the problem is these are all long-term views, and long-term views that involves paying people, which where for a product that is gonna take a while. It's a 6-year investment. You're investing 3 years of paying salaries to boys and girls who decide to go this route and spend 3 years abroad. That's investment. That's another investment for 3 years of now mandatory military service for everybody who spent 3 years abroad. So for those 6 years, yes, they were going to be a burden, but it's an investment. If you don't want to invest in your societies, what the fuck do you want to invest? What good is that money if you don't want to invest it in your own society, in your own education of your own people, your own tribe? Your tribe needs, an investment in education, and no education is better than travel. No education is better than travel. Absolutely no education. Best education in the world is a bit of traveling. A lot of travel. The more traveled you have, the more you have traveled, the more educated you have become. End of story. You want to promote that in the society. That means those members of society that are just about coming into the world, you pay for their movement on this planet to get more another perspective, add another perspective to their own. When you add another perspective to somebody's already their own perspective, just because they learn a different language and they pick up a different local culture, the result of that is that you get a guy that's got now two perspectives, speaks two languages, much more employable and much more calm? Much more calm? Much more calm. Go. 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 Much more calm. Because people with multiple perspective are much calmer. They have some kind of empathy and sympathy. They develop empathy and sympathy for their this situation all the time, because they have multiple. They can fit in their brain multiple perspective. They see from their own perspective, and the perspective of their adopted country sometimes kicks in. So they have multiple perspectives. This is a good thing to have in a society. So incentivizing people, going out of state, out of country, incentivizing. I'm sorry, but this capitalism thing has become so bad that upside down. It has been many years that even people inside Uncle Sam's land, in every state, they are incentivized if they stay in their state. It's an incentive. And study, go to the state university. If they go to the state, if they were born there, they're incentivized to stay there. People within Uncle Sam's land today are, if they are born in whatever state they're born in, if they go to their own state university, they get a good discount. They give a great discount. Go to the same state university, and then opposed to going to a neighboring state university, they get no discount. It's sort of like, again, incentivizing in being introverts, incentivizing the wrong thing. It's like 181. You gotta applaud people from wanting to explore. Exploring must be applauded, not penalized. Exploration of the environment around you must be incentivized, not penalized. And by double taxing people who don't live in the tribe right now, but you're charging the tribal taxes on them, that's a disincentive. Sort of like, that's penalizing. Just like when you say, if you study in state, then you can pay less less. I understand the economics part of it, but again, we go back to the Star Trek that I wish everybody would see a lot of it. You don't want to turn into the Ferengi. Mixing commerce with state is what is represented in that the fictional TV series, the Star Trek. This extreme mixing of the state and commerce is beautifully depicted to some detail. That what happens when you mix commerce and state. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the Federation of Planets, the way the Star Trek itself, the humans of the future were running themselves, were more socialist. The captain was not getting paid. We never learned How much does the captain of Star Trek make a month? Or in Star Wars, nobody actually says how much does the the Jedi's make every month. So if you don't hear it in these idealistic futures, idealistic with progressive futures, this is futures that will happen only if we go to the socialist way and say, okay, no, we're not going to pay the captain, but we're going to make sure captain has a comfortable lifestyle, and we are not going to pay the the cleaner of the captain's clothes. Either a robot does it or whoever else we have to pay. We also have to provide them with proper living conditions. That's the job of the state. And they were not soldiers. The idea is that you can have an exploratory society, or you can have a boots on the ground kind of society. I mean, you don't want to go the way of the Borg. You don't want to go the way of the Ferengi. You don't want to go the way of again, another Star Trek reference. The Borg is sort of like, you don't want to do that. And all of those are a result of commerce, being too involved with the state. At one point, the state, if there are intellectuals in charge of state, not commercial man, no commerce. If there was no commerce in the state and there were only intellectuals in the state, they would have sat down and have a talk about what we need to do, because commerce has a destructive effect here, destructive effect here, destructive effect here, destructive effect here. Okay, how can we remedy this? Okay, all right, we should remedy this like this. But when the commercial men themselves are in charge, or their cousins are in charge, that you're not going to get any remedies. You're not going to get remedies that mean anything, because they're in charge. So the whole idea, we go back to separation of state and commerce. This needs to happen. Absolutely. It's not bad as it is. Thank you very much. Separation of church and state. Thank God we don't have a cardinal or a bishop or a Your Holiness as a transportation secretary. That's good, but let's not have commercemen in state either. It's just break the take commerce out of state as well. It has become the root of most of the state's problem. Commerce has become the root of most of state's problem, because they look after themselves. They're commercemen. They are commercial men. They are very selfish. You have intellectuals who are unselfish. They should be running the state, because they think unselfishly. They think they think how more people would be benefited. So if you had an intellectual in place of George W. Bush, Iraq invasion would have never taken place. Al Gore would have never. Al Gore was not a great intellectual, but he was he was much more he was a B student. He was an A student. Al Gore was an A student, but but George W. Bush was the chief clown of the class, and he got elected because he was good on his feet, with a line over here and a line over there and buddy here and a buddy there and a recognizable last name. They got a actor. The point is this: double taxation is bad. Promotion of staying within the hole that you were born in is bad. Exploration is good. Promotion of exploration is good. Double taxation is penalizing those people who have stepped just out of their boundary. That's penalizing them. It's a very bad thing to do if you think people need to be empathetic and sympathetic, because here's the thing. I mean, when people are empathetic and sympathetic, the more empathetic and sympathetic your people are, the more stable your society is going to be. The society of soldiers is going to be very rough. A society of, women is going to be very empathetic and sympathetic. The idea is this, and the traveling part, the living outside of your own tribe, gives you the kind of perspective that will lead to more empathy and sympathy, that will bring more stability to your own societies at home. Because now your people have multiple perspectives in life and have loads of empathy and sympathy for the people they're living next to. So when they come back from, their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years abroad, as many years as they want, but generally 3 years. And as a prize for 3 years living abroad, here, 3 years of military service. But the point is this: what you get at the end, working people who know 2 languages, who have at least two perspectives in life, and with a lot of empathy and sympathy within their mindset. Age 25. That's a great place to be in a society with such a mindset. And 9 out of 10 of them are going to come out exactly as they said. That's a good problem to have. You have to incentivize your citizens to go to foreign places. You have to incentivize it. But you look at NPR and you see they don't even have offices there. Everybody's trying to keep at home. Are you fucking kidding me? It's the other day I was watching this documentary that the guy said, yeah, everybody stays at home. And we get reports over the phone, over the internet, over the Zoom, we get reports like this. You stay in your home and I stay in my home, and I tell you what's up in my home and you tell me what's up in your home over the screen. Well, that's good. You get some information over the screen, but the idea, if it's creating better citizens, you need to put more empathy and sympathy in their system. To do that, you need to provide them with in a situation, a condition that will give them another perspective in life, and hopefully learning another language in life and give another perspective in life. And that comes about only if you incentivize it. Incentivize people who are currently working to go abroad and work. In that way, Uncle Sam can actually print more dollars and not get inflation, because some of that dollar is being spent outside of US. And you incentivize their life. They live abroad 3 years. If they're working, fine, as long as they like. And for the youngsters, 18, as soon as they're 18, they say, hey, you want to go live abroad? We pay for this much a month for 3 years abroad, and after that, but you have to come and to do a 3-year military service for us. I can assure you a lot of people will go, and I can assure you you wouldn't have any objection from anybody if you make it mandatory and you bring back the draft. You bring back the draft. 3 years, and I'm sure nobody. If the incentive is 3 years of living anywhere else in the world on this planet that paid for Uncle Sam, I'm sure nobody will mind. Even rich kids will go through with it. As long as, there is no current war and they don't start another war. If this system continues, a draft for youngsters right out of high school, if this happens, you will stop having wars on this planet. At first for those countries who can afford it, and later on for eventually everybody. You will stop having wars on this planet in about 5 years, and you will have much more stable societies at home and abroad, and you will stop having wars in 5 years, just by exchanging people, incentivizing your own citizen. Now this could be, I'm talking about South Africa and Zimbabwe at this point. So sort of South Africans, hey, we incentivize you if you live in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabweans, their own government subsidizes them living in South Africa. If you subsidize, incentivize, not subsidize, incentivize, just pay the local taxes. Just the idea of, if you go live there, whatever taxes the local government charges you, we give you that tax back. We pay for it. We pay for your local taxes. If this idea is promoted, there is more incentive for people of one place to go and live in another place for a while, short term or medium term or long term. This is something you want to incentivize. This is something that will solve a lot of problems on planet Earth. Incentivizing the citizens to move around. Certainly this nationalism shit that you guys got is going to be a little mellowed. When people move, it's good, but not with guns. Not with guns. Movement of people is good. The guns part of it, not so much.